Alright, what's going on, guys? It's your boy XX, tier list guy XX, and I'm coming at you with yet another tier list in case you didn't tell by the title. And this one is perhaps the most requested one after I made the fashion one, which is the execution tier list for For Honor. Now, I gotta get a couple things out of the way before we start this video. This is probably perhaps the most opinionated one that I've ever made, and everything looks nice to different people, and we're just out here doing this for fun. So I just don't take it too seriously when I say things. If I shit on a character that you might like their execution, it's okay. You can shit on ones that I like too. It's fine. But in this one, you might be thinking, wow, this video is not quite long enough to cover all these executions. There's quite a bit in the game. And that's because I'm not covering every single execution, because that would take forever, because you know how many executions are in this game? I'll let you know, 224. That's a lot. And I feel like if we rated every single one of those, then that would be a upwards of an hour video. And if we, you know what? I'm going to put this goal, I don't think I've ever had a video with 5,000 likes. If this video ever reached that amount, maybe I'll do it, because that would take some serious planning. That would take a very long time to create. But instead, we're looking at the overall conglomerate of all the executions that the characters have, and then just kind of picking, like, you know, how many good ones they have. And I did this with Half Dead Fly as well, so shouts out to him for kind of helping me with the list. And then we just rank them in our S to D tier, you know, D being dog shit, S being super sweet, and, you know, we're kind of basing them off there. You know, everyone has at least one really good execution, I think, in this game, and most of them actually have a few pretty good ones. Just some, I think, have more than others, and that's kind of where we're putting the basis on here. So don't get too upset if I put, you know, someone you like, their executions low, because, yeah, it's whatever. It's just an opinion, you feel me? And with this list, another one thing I'm going to say is, although, you know, there's a lot of cool executions in there, most of the Wu Lin are going to be lower on this list just because of the fact that they only have 5 executions each, and the next lowest DLC characters have 9, which I believe is Aramusha and Shaman. So everyone else has 9 or above executions, the original cast having 12. So it's kind of hard to put a basis on there, even though they might have a couple cool ones. They just simply don't have enough in their list to really put them any higher. So that's kind of why I'm putting this down, putting them probably lower on the list, because they could get some good ones in the future. Just at the moment, they haven't been out long enough. So without further ado, let's hop into the list with D tier. Now, starting off in the D tier is going to be Shinobi. And rather than just kind of shit on everybody that I think I don't have that great of executions, I'm going to point out kind of my 3 favorites from every character throughout this video. So of the Shinobi, I think his best execution that he has is the Shadow of Death. It's a really cool one. It's one of the most unique ones that Shinobi has, and that's kind of sad because a lot of Shinobis just really look the same in the way that they have. They're created. Not too much creativity, I feel like, goes in with the Shinobi executions. And even people who play Shinobi tell me a lot of the time that they're disappointed with it. But I think Shadow of Death is his best, with also Scorpion Sting being a pretty good one, as well as No Escape. I think those ones are probably his nicest. But overall, Shinobi just doesn't have too much variety in which the executions are made, so that's why he's lower on the list. The next one on the list is going to be Nuxia in the D tier. Mostly, you know, again, she is a Wu Lin, so she doesn't have too many executions to really choose from. The only ones that I really kind of like are A Short Rest, which is kind of cool when she sits on them and kind of rips their head off. I think that one's pretty cool, as well as the most recent one, Crossed Moon Snap. I think that one's pretty nice. Another decapitation. But the other ones just kind of look goofy. Like, specifically, you could look at, like, Bai Mao Nu, which is, like, it's got a weird little dance at the end that I don't really like. And then the Hook, Line, and Sinker and Roulette of Rain are just, I don't know, they just don't look too nice to me, so that's why she's put lower on the list. Maybe she gets some better ones in the future, but just right now, I just not really feeling them. And the final character that is going to be on the D tier for the executions is going to be the Shaman. And the reason with putting Shaman in here is I feel like a lot of hers are kind of suffering from the same as Shinobi. A lot of them are just like a stab with her axe and then another stab with her dagger. And I know she has a couple ones. She's supposed to be this fucking crazy bitch, basically, who's, you know, an absolute psychopath. And she's got some executions that kind of resemble that. Like, Incorrigible is one where she kind of, like, bites off their finger. And Really Get In There is another one. But I don't like those ones. I don't like Incorrigible, how it looks. And the animation for Really Get In There, I don't like, because it's like she reaches inside them and it's kind of glitchy. And she pulls her hand out and there's really nothing in her hand, just blood. It's just, I don't really like it. I feel like a more better representation of the kind of psycho nature of the Shaman is the Alpha Blot execution that she got recently, where she basically just kills them and then just kind of watches them bleed out. I think that one's pretty darn nice. I also really like her Timber, where she does multiple chops to the neck before cutting off the head. And then also the You Better Run execution with the throwing of the axe into the back is a really cool one as well. But other than that, most of her executions are pretty basic with just some sort of double stab feature to it, and I don't really like her, like, I guess, weird executions of like grabbing inside and like biting someone's finger off. They just don't look that great to me. Now we're moving into the C tier, which is just a little bit better than D, just they have, I think, a little bit nicer executions. Again, we're going to be seeing a lot of the Wulin in here. Starting off with that is going to be Tiandi. Now again, Tiandi only has 5 executions. One thing about Tiandi, I think that they had some better starting executions. I think the one they most got recently, the Swallow's Backspin, it's not very good at all. I think, personally, Down to Earth is a really damn good execution, and I definitely think it's Tiandi's best. As well as the Revolution is a really cool one. I think those two are a pretty solid combination. Typhoon Punishment is not a great one, and then Hold This, again, is not one of my favorites either. But with the Down to Earth being actually really, really sick, that's why I put them up higher on to C. The next one that we're going to be looking on the list again is another Wulin. That's going to be Jangjun. And a lot of Jangjuns are just, they're pretty okay. They're pretty nice executions. Like, I don't have too much to say about a lot of them. I mean, there's a couple that I don't personally prefer. Like, I don't really like Stay Down, and I don't like personally as much the Keep Your Stance Wide, the most recent one that he got. But I do like the Windmill Stab is pretty cool with the stab into the stomach. The Fly Swatter I really like just because they kind of walk into the blade, which is pretty cool. I think that one's pretty nice. And as well as the Backhand Spiral, just a nice little decapitation. Those are always good executions to have. So a lot of JJs are just kind of alright. Nothing really blows me out of the water, and that's why I can't put him any higher than C, but that's why he's not really D, because I don't feel like any of them are really, like, bad, per se. Alright guys, so the next character in the C tier is going to be none other than Orochi, and Orochi has some pretty cool and clean executions, but he also has some executions that I'm just not a fan of. One of the ones that I actually really like, I think the most, would probably be Choke on This. It's got a stab right through the neck, and he kind of just lets them slide off of the sword, which is really, really brutal. Some of my other favorite ones that he has are actually Kneel for me. I think is a really nice, simple, clean execution, as well as From Above. But then there's some other stuff like Roka no Shi, which, let me just be honest, this one's a little bit too over the top for me. I understand it's supposed to be like anime and edgy, but I can't handle it, honestly. I'm not a huge fan of it, and to be completely honest, there's a lot of other ones that I don't think aren't as great. Like his most recent one, Tabasu, I don't think is that nice of an execution. I don't really think that Senbazuru is that great. It's pretty anime as well, because he kind of does a little slash and waits for him to die. And then I don't really like Anbao quite as much. I know it's kind of a cool little like neck slash, but the bow is kind of silly in my opinion. But not to say that he doesn't have some good executions, because he definitely does. I still kind of like Toro Toro as well, but of those ones, I mean, I think just like, man, Roka no Shi, I can't get over it. The final character in the C tier is going to be the last of the Wulin, and that is the Shaolin. And Rain Reason for Shaolin, again, they have some pretty nice ones with a lot of like cool martial arts work in it, but a lot of them are kind of goofy as well. Some of them, like, I don't really like Anxi. That's not one. That one I don't really find that great. Cartwheel's an okay execution. I think one of my favorites personally is the Shua Peng. I really like the one. The dodge underneath the staff as well is really, really cool. I think Monkeying Around is just a terrible execution. I think it's way too goofy, and I'm not a big fan of it. And the Brawling Showdown is a pretty decent one as well. There's only so much you can do, because it's not like too many decapitations are coming off with that staff, so they have to be a little bit more unique in which how they create the executions for Shaolin, and maybe we're gonna get some pretty unique ones later, but at the moment he just doesn't have enough to really put him any higher in the tier list. Alright, now we are going to be moving into the B tier, which is, again, it's just like the middle of the ground executions, and starting that off is going to be Peacekeeper. Peacekeeper's got some pretty nice executions, I'm not gonna lie. My favorites from her, I liked her most recent one, which is, I believe, the Nightingale Guillotine. That's a very nice execution. The Good Form is another really good one, where she just kind of stabs them in the neck, tilts it up, and kind of lets them fall off of it. And then I think perhaps my favorite from PK, I don't know about other people's, is Trepanation, where she kind of gets both of her daggers held by the warden or whoever you're executing, and she kind of grabs her one and stabs him in the side of the head, which I think is absolutely brutal, and I think that one is amazing. But she does have a couple that I think aren't that great. You know, like Instant Regret isn't that great. I don't really like how she laughs kind of throughout the whole thing. I think that one's kind of bad. And then she has a couple basic ones as well, with just a couple other like double stabs and everything in here. I'm just not too big a fan of like all of them, but some of the ones that PK does have are really, really nice to look at. The next person we're looking at into the B tier is the Conqueror, And the Conqueror has some pretty nice executions, but I feel like a lot of the executions from the Conqueror also, it's like a single hit with the weapon and then followed up by just another hit with the weapon. Like things such as like Eat Dirt aren't very unique to me, as well as Spine Twister, which I believe was the most recent one that came out. I'm not a big fan of, but he does have some pretty good ones. Like Spiked Punch is a very, very good execution, as well as Dislocator I really like, where he kind of rips the arm off. That's a really cool one. Then he's got a couple other cool ones, like Modified Hangman is really cool, as well as the Gut Punch Neckbreaker, where he actually takes the shield and cuts the head off, which is pretty awesome to see. But a lot of the other executions for Conqueror have just kind of, just a basic kind of two-hit system to it that I'm not a huge fan of. The next one that we're going to be looking at in the B tier is going to be the Warlord. Now, Warlord has some really nice executions, but also some executions that I'm not a huge fan of. Like, I don't really like any of the real wrestling-esque executions. Like the Viking's elbow, I'm not a huge fan of. I'm not a real big fan of either, like the Attitude Adjuster. I don't really like that one either, as well as the heart attack with like the clothesline. Not a big fan of that, but with that said, there is still some really nice executions from Warlord, and I really think that he incorporates the use of his shield pretty nicely in the executions. Like, I like Targeted Strike, which is the most recent one, I think, almost the most, because he throws the shield at the person, they have it above their face, and as soon as they move it down, they get stabbed in the neck. That's really cool. Beatdown, just a little traditional beatdown with the shield to the head while the sword's in them. Really, really cool. The Best Offense is, again, another really cool one, using the shield, as well as the Nailed Down is a really good one, because you actually hit it down with the shield as well. So the incorporation of the shield makes Warlord pretty nice, but I think some of like the WWE-esque moves kind of put him a little bit lower on the tier list. Next character in the B tier is going to be Raider. Now, Raider has, again, some really fucking sweet executions, but a couple of them just seem very, very similar. Like, to me, if I look at Gutbuster as well as Pure Force, those are very, very similar to me. I know one is getting hit in the back and the other's the stomach, but again, they're pretty similar. I don't really like his most recent one, the Axe Uppercut, or not the Axe Uppercut, the Bloody Hall, but I also don't like the Axe Uppercut. But those ones are pretty, basic in my Ascension. Like, he almost has these same executions that have already came out before, and it kind of feels like they redo a lot of stuff with Raider. With that being said, though, I really do like Chokeslam. I think that one's really good. Kind of pushing it down, pushing the axe onto their head right at the end is really cool. The Viking Press Backbreaker is insane. Just the absolute strength on this man is uncontested, that's for sure. And then Aegir's Tide is a really, really good one. That's one of his first like throw-off like ledge executions, which I think is really good. And comparing that to Bloody Hall, Aegir's Tide is just miles above that, I believe. Next up on the B tier is going to be Highlander. Now, most recently, I actually have liked Highlander's past two executions. Even the Cruel Demise, I think that's crazy. He gets like fucking double shin stabbed and then he pushes the guard of the sword into their face. Even though it does make the little rickety sound when he pushes him back up, which is kind of corny, it's still a cool execution. Fatal Toss is by far my favorite one that Highlander has. He throws him onto the sword and just kicks his head off. And you can see the head comes off at an angle too. It's not like a clean cut. That is absolutely brutal. But then he's got a couple ones that are pretty similar in my aspect, like Spin the Bottle is pretty close to 360 Takedown, and then he's got a couple like, Bone Crusher and Pathetic are pretty basic in my Ascension. Like, I know like the Pathetic, he kind of drags him across the ground, which is pretty cool. I'd say probably the other one that I like is probably the No Mercy, because he cuts off the arm and then stabs him in the side. That's pretty darn unique, and he pushes on their head to pull a sword out, which is fucking disrespectful. But just some of the other ones are pretty basic to me and aren't too unique, so that's why I have him in B. And the final character that we have on the B tier is going to be Aramusha. Now, Aramusha, I play quite a bit, and I have quite a fair few executions for him. But there are a few that I really just do not like with Aramusha. Like, Bare Hands Beatdown has to be one of the fucking stupidest executions in this game, personally speaking. I just think it looks really stupid. I know we were going a little over the top with the Dragon Palm Strike, but this man's got fire coming out of his hands every which direction. I just think that it's a little over the top and unnecessary. With that being said, I do like Dragon Palm Strike, just for the fact that he actually makes them twitch on the ground for a really long time, and I kind of created a meme out of it on my channel. I like Slashing Wind as well, which I think is pretty sweet. Mulberry Field is absolutely disgusting. Like, that would hurt very much so. And then he's got a couple other ones that are pretty cool, like the Sayuri was a pretty cool one that he got most recently. Not a big fan of the flawless execution though, and the twin dragons is okay. But other than that, like Armush has got some pretty unique ones, but then he just has the bare hands beatdown, which pisses me off that it's on there. So now we are moving into the A tier. Now the A tier, you could argue obviously as well for S, because I think that there are a lot of good executions in these characters as well to potentially put them in S, but just not in my list. So obviously your list could be different. But we're going to be starting off with Gladiator, and Gladiator has some sick executions. Like, I don't know, I think potentially my favorite is the one he most recently got, the Ruthless Tidings. Like, when he kicks it, his trident on the ground, it actually hits them in the face. That is insane. This one's feisty's great too. Nice little ass stab. Yeah, you gotta love it, right? And then obviously Sleep Now is another one of my favorites. That's one I use a lot. Just a nice little choke out. But he does have a couple ones that I don't really like too much. I don't really like Maximum Carnage that much. It's pretty basic. I know it's one of his starting ones. I don't like Fighting Dirty that much, and I really don't like the How Dare You, where he gets punched and he punches him back. Not a big fan of it, but some of the other ones that he have are just so nice, but it just, not all of them are like good enough to really put him into S tier for me. Next character that we are going to have on this list is going to be Centurion in the A tier, and Centurion has a lot of really cool executions. He's pretty disrespectful in the way in which he does them, so that's what kind of adds them a little bit of flair points, I would say. Some of my favorites from Centurion would be Police Verso, which is the thumbs up, thumbs down execution where he chops up the arm and stabs them. That one's just absolutely disrespectful, and I love it. I really do like as well the Inglorious End, where he kind of knocks him on the ground, kicks their arm out of the way, stands over him a wee bit before stabbing him in the chest. That's crazy. And I really do like Brutal Beating, because it's like the enemy actually fights back and you really has to struggle for it, but then he's able to overcome and get a nice kill off on there. He most recently got the little neck stab from Troy, which is pretty cool. But there are a couple that I don't really like too much. Like, I don't really like Alla Lacta Est, which isn't that great. I don't really like Roman Uppercut. Pretty basic. I don't really like too much of just the punching executions. Those ones don't really do anything for me. But a lot of Centurion's ones are cool, but just because of some of the, just like basic punch ones, I put them in A instead of. Next on the A tier is going to be Berserker, and I think that Zerk has got some really, really nice executions. Like, This is Valkenheim is a super basic one, but I think it's really, really nice. He's obviously got things like Punch Drunk is really, really cool. I also really like his most recent one, the Vehement Axe Stomp. That one's crazy. And then he still has some other good ones in there as well. So it doesn't just end at the three that I really like. He's got Watch This. He's got Double Your Effort. But then he's got a couple ones that I don't really like too much, like Severe Amputation and Timber and Move It Along. I'm not a huge fan of those ones, so that's why I'm kind of putting them lower in. You'll find out that most of the ones in S, I'm pretty much a huge fan of all the executions they have, so that's why Berserker's in A. Next character we have in the A tier is going to be Warden. Warden does have some really nice executions, a lot of them being simple, but they just look very, very nice. Like this one that he got most recently, the Brutality of Camlan, is probably my favorite that he has. But he does have some really, really cool, like, simplistic ones, like a Moment of Silence is a really nice one, just a clean stab through the chest and then kind of takes out a sword and plays a little bit of respect at the end, which is pretty nice. And then even as well, End Them Rightly is a pretty funny one. The little memer in me likes it, how he unscrews it and hits him with the pommel. I find that to be kind of funny. But he does have a couple of ones that I'm not like a big fan of. Like, I think Shoulder Tackle's a little stupid, in my opinion. He tackles him, then he gets up and kind of stabs him. And he's like, oh shit, my bad, fam. Not a huge fan of that one, to be completely honest. And then Taking Out the Trash, I just feel isn't as nice as a Moment of Silence, and it's pretty similar. So that's why Warden's kind of a little bit lower than the S tier, but he still has some very, very nice execution. And the final character on the S tier is going to be Nobushi. Now, Nobushi has some absolutely incredible executions. He has some fucking crazy ones. I think my favorite could be potentially 5 Deadly Stabs. That one's really, really sick as they try to like come towards you, stab them a bunch of times. Those ones are actually insane. There's a couple like meh ones, like, you know, Dearest Pity, I'm not a huge fan of as they come close and she kind of like caresses them and stuff. I do like Give Us a Smile. I think that, as well as the 5 Strikes, are my favorite that she has. But she does have some pretty cool ones, like Butterfly Dance is pretty cool, as well as Ohisama no Kataki, which is the most recent one she got. I feel like some of Nobushi's ones aren't like super great, and you might argue that she's lower, but I think the really good ones that she does have are absolutely incredible, and that's why she's in A and not in S, but not lower than A. Now we're moving into S tier, which I personally think have the best executions in the game. And I already know people are going to be like, but Tony, you're a little bit biased in this, don't you think, by picking Kunsei as the number first person in the S tier? And I'm like, you know what? I do like Kensei's executions, though. I honestly think Kensei has really fucking good executions. So starting off, we are with him. My personal favorite, I think Insert New Spine is the most underrated execution in this entire game. It is absolutely insane. Getting a sword stabbed from the back of your neck all the way down to the bottom of your back is literally insane. I love Yasuraka. I think that one's really cool. As well as, man, there's so many that I could actually choose from. Gravity's Fall is really cool, where he falls onto the blade. And even the most recent one that he got, the Shizuka ni Namure, which is, he kind of stabs him in the neck and then he kind of goes down, gives him a little prayer, and then pulls the sword out, is absolutely ridiculous. I really think that they put a lot of effort into Kensei's executions, and I don't think that there's really a super bad one. I think the only one that might be somewhat not great is Quick Kill, but that is pretty useful as for Dominion and stuff to get execution health. But I'm not looking at getting health back in Dominion. I'm looking at how cool the execution is. So I still think Kensei is in S tier. And wouldn't you believe it, the next character is Shigoki. Boy, oh boy, Tony, I think you're a bit biased in this list, picking two of the characters you play a lot. But I mean, I don't know if you can really argue with me about Shigoki. I could go on it for days, honestly. Kinjite, one-handed choke, are you kidding me? Kimarite, I should say, which is the bitch slap. That one is dormant. Just walks on the person. Shigoki smash, come on, what do you mean? The mountain, goodbye to your head, sir. Like, everything's even great. And even his ones that aren't that, like, super in-depth, I still really like. Like, I like Dyspepsia a lot because it kind of gets lodged inside of their ass when he hits them. That's pretty funny. And, I mean, even, like, Sit On It's a pretty good one. You know, the hip attack is pretty good. I just, everything he's got, I think, is just great. Execution-wise, Shigoki is just the absolute fucking legend. He's a legend. That's all I can say, which is why he's in S tier. The next S tier character is going to be the Lawbringer. And, of course, you guys had to have seen this one coming. He's got some really good ones. He has a few of them are a little bit too memey for me, but they're still pretty nice. I still like them a lot. Like, oh, come on. I think is kind of funny. At the same time, I kind of don't like it because he's like, oh man, they died before I could hit them. I kind of find that to be a bit funny. The Duralex Sedlex is perhaps my favorite execution that Lawbringer has, where he kind of stabs him in the stomach, cleans off the blood, then just a fucking full-on decapitation. What do you mean? And he's got the chokehold as well, which is pretty nice, and as well as the hands-on approach. You know, he's the choke daddy as well. Not quite one-handed as the Shigoki does, but I mean, you can't really argue. Lawbringer's executions are fucking sweet, and he's just, you know, it's funny that all of these, like, low-tiered characters have such fucking cool executions, like Shigoki and Lawbringer, although Shigoki is getting his changes. I just feel like that's why people want so much love for them, because everything they have, they just look fucking sweet, they have cool executions, and, you know, let's just hope we get that Lawbringer rework soon, because his executions are freaking phenomenal. And the final person we're looking at in the S tier is Valkyrie. Wow, no surprise, Tony, you idiot. You play Valkyrie too. You know, I'm sorry, guys. I actually picked up Valkyrie specifically for executions. That, and she is really smooth to play. But you can't tell me. You look at Spearfishing, right? And then you look at Harpooned. These are probably two of the top 5 executions in the entire game, in my opinion. Like, Spearfishing and Harpooned are so damn good that even if a couple other of Valkyrie's executions aren't really up to snuff with it, like, I know Sportive Knockout wasn't really great, which is her most recent one, wasn't that great, but I think, like, the fact that she has those two with some other ones as well are really, really nice. Like, No Touching is obviously good. Unfortunately, they don't touch the tits. That would have been even greater. She would have had 3 amazing executions at that point. Shield Grab is really cool. I used to really like Trick Shot until Deadfly showed me the right wrist of Valkyrie breaks like 19 times when that happens. So I don't like that one as much anymore. But, I mean, Spearfishing and Harpoon are just like 2 of my favorite executions in the entire game. So that's why I have to put Valkyrie up this high, because they're just so incredible. And that's going to do it for the list, I'll put the master list on screen right now so you can see the entire tier list. This had been requested for a very long time, so I hope you guys enjoyed it. Leave in the comments what you would like your next tier list for me to make, and I will probably get around to doing it. I didn't want to include Vortiger because I felt like it would be pretty bad again to have another character with like a low amount of execution, so there's not too much to compare against. But I still wanted to include the Wulin because I felt like, you know, they've been out since October. They have at least 5 to choose from, although they might be a little bit lower. Perhaps I can do an updated list in the future, and that might change. But let me know your guys' list in the comments below. I really do appreciate all the support on these tier lists. They're really fun to make. So thank you guys for continuing to tune into them. And it really does make my day when I see all the comments on here. And even the people who call me, you know, a loser and say my lists are wrong. It's, you know what, to each their own, I suppose. So thank you guys for watching. It's been your boy Tony. Talk to you in the next one. Peace.